All right, Harmony. Let's get the audio started here and then we'll start the recording. So three, two, one. Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe and galaxy. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined all the way from Scotland by Harmony Neal. I first noticed that you were posting some videos somewhere about your interest in literacy and reading, and I think that this is a topic that is very, very underrated and also very important to encourage people to have a love and interest in reading. So, as I say to any guest, who is Harmony Neal? And you can just dig into your life story and your YouTube channels and how you got in, how you became so interested and where you developed your love for reading. So tell us all about it. Who's Harmony Neal? Go.
Okay. Well, I'm 34 years old, going to be 35 this year. I spent most of my life in England and now live in Scotland for the last 2 or 3 years, a couple of years now. In terms of work and stuff, at the minute I'm self-employed. I do knitting work, like run my own business, making textiles, like knit things to sell. Sometimes a bit of crochet, sewing, written a couple of my own knitting patterns. But I also tried to do. I also tried to do a business where I would make put braille put menus into braille for restaurants and cafes. But sadly, that never really took off, which I'm surprised about. With accessibility, and while everyone wants to be able to know what they're ordering on the menu, and be able to make that choice without having to get somebody to do it for them. In terms of my love for literacy and reading generally, I've always enjoyed reading, and I read partly to learn things, but partly because it's interesting and fun.
Very good. Excellent. Well, for one thing, if you can try to come a little bit closer to your microphone,
Oh,
I
okay.
got, yeah, no problem. I got most of what you said there. So yeah, I definitely got the idea. Um, so very good. So you grew up in England and then you moved to Scotland at some point.
Scotland a couple
Right,
of years
yeah.
ago, yeah.
Right, yeah. So and by the way, where did you grow up in England, by the way?
Well, I spent most of my life in Cambridgeshire. Cambridgeshire County in the east,
Hmm.
southeast, kind of. And well, I was born just outside Liverpool, and which is a completely other direction, in northwest England.
Right.
And I, yeah, I lived in various parts of England. Um, when after I left home, I lived in Hereford, Gateshead.
Good. Yeah. So you lived all over England. That's really
Pretty much.
excellent. Pretty much, yeah, that's really cool. Really good. I actually lived in England for 3 months during university. I studied at the University of East Anglia in Norwich.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
not
So
that
I'm
far.
very familiar with the place. Yes. And I've
Yeah,
I've never been I've never been to Scotland. So I'm purely curious, why did you move to Scotland?
partly just change of scene, change of people, start over again, really. Because I've been in Doncaster for a couple of years,
Hmm.
Doncaster in Yorkshire, and thought, why not?
Right.
Scotland was a country that, well, a country, bit of the UK that I visited, but not spent a great deal of time in, so I wanted to explore it as well.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Now, were you, some of my listeners always ask me to bring this up. And I do not think this is the most interesting part of the interview, but some people like to know. So, Harmony, were you born blind or did you become blind later? And for me, I was born blind with glaucoma. I had cataracts in my eyes when I was born, and I also have a congenital heart defect. So, were you born blind, by the way?
I have retinopathy of prematurity,
Uh-huh.
so
Excellent. Excellent.
similar to,
ROP, as we call it over
yeah,
here on my side of the pond, ROP,
yeah,
retinopathy
yeah,
of prematurity. Indeed.
yeah,
Yes.
they call it that too here. But you've got to be careful with that because sometimes and with some accents, somebody mistook my saying ROP for RP.
RP. Yes.
No,
Yes,
no,
totally. So it's
totally
two
different.
it's two very totally different things,
Yeah.
both impacting the retina, but they are very different. Yes, in the States here, we struggle with the difference from RP to ROP. Yes. Yes, indeed, indeed.
um, and
Um,
that was actually a mobility instructor that mistook what I said. I'm like, no.
that's good, Harmony. No, that you know what? Actually, I mean, this is going to sound strange. I understand where there would be some confusion because it's two very similar expressions, RP, ROP. It's very similar.
Yeah,
It's extremely similar.
if you
Yeah.
talk quick enough, then it can kind of come across that way.
Right. Indeed, indeed. Yeah. Harmony, I actually interviewed the RP show, by the way, here on Aaron's Opinion. I don't
Oh,
know if you follow them. You probably do, right?
no.
No, that's fine. Yeah, they're also, well, one of the guys on that thing is from England and the others from the States. So very good. Wonderful. So let's really
And
dig into, go ahead. Yes, what?
so what level of vision do you have now? Are you able to like read plain and
Absolutely.
get around without a cane or what?
Absolutely. So what has occurred with my eyes, Harmony, is my eyes have had undergone many surgeries. And I've had basically 8 different operations on my eyes over my 32 years of life. So I'm 32. And my right eye is the worst off of the two eyes. My left eye seems to be better, but I can tell, and I was thinking of it just last evening when I was watching TV. Um, my right cornea is definitely getting worse as I get older, But I have enough vision to say, like, I can ride an electric scooter around my neighborhood where I live. I can walk around, but when I'm in public, I always use a cane because I need to use a cane. And it's also, in my opinion, the respectful and polite way to tell sighted people that I'm blind. So I
Yeah.
really believe that it's important socially to use a cane just as much as it's safer for you to use a cane? So, so yeah, yeah.
So
So sure.
in terms of reading itself, then do you use braille or large print or?
So I am a Braille user, and nowadays in the States, there's a lot of debate about, whether Braille is dead or alive, and I'm
Oh,
sure you
yes,
hear the
yeah,
debate over there with the
yeah.
RNIB all the time. I'm sure it's a big debate in the
I see
in
it
in
in
the
the blind spaces in general a lot. I don't um make a point of interacting with a lot of blind people, but those that I do read it. Like, because to me it is so like so what if they're blind? I don't care. Like,
Wow. Well, you made me feel special. That's a
like
key thing when
so
you're a guest on
what?
someone's podcast. You always have to make the host feel special. Like basically, I don't interact with anyone. Actually, I'm extremely unfriendly and antisocial, but at least I'll talk to you. Wow, well, that really makes me feel better.
No, but,
You know what, Harmony? I am the same way. I'm exactly like you,
like I
exactly the
don't
same.
care if they're blind or sighted, whatever. They're people.
That's
We're doing the
wonderful.
same
That's
thing.
wonderful. You have the right attitude to be on a podcast. You have the right attitude to be in our community here at Aaron's Opinion, and it's mostly about the personality. And you have it. That's really good,
Oh,
Harmony.
thanks.
That's wonderful. Yeah. But I'm
But
the
those
same
that
way. I'm the
those are
same way as well, though.
good.
I'm also very introverted, and outside of my podcasting, I don't really talk to anyone outside of the International Blind Cafe and groups like that where we met. I don't really talk to anyone. So yeah,
Yeah,
I understand what you mean. There's so much debate and so much tension now in the blindness community that I think it really turns away a lot of people. And that's why I wanted to get into podcasting myself, because I want to create a product for you, Harmony, and the world, where you can come up to me and have a meaningful and engaging conversation. And I'm
yeah,
noticing right away that you are very engaged. You're asking me questions. You're digging all the way into the interview. You're showing me that you want to be here, and you're showing me that you should be here. And I
yeah.
really appreciate it.
In
So,
terms of in
mhm.
terms of the blind people that I have interacted with, I have friends who happen to be blind or vision impaired or whatever. But uh, in terms of like asking them, some of them say they would rather not use braille because they find it slow. But I think it's really important uh, to be able to actually read in some form, whether it be braille, large print, moon, some other tactile system, if you mean listen doesn't. Um, because you then get an idea of spelling, punctuation, etc.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, I know a lot of people, um, whether it's because they learn better using audio or whether it's because they just feel like it, um, or availability or whatever, those that use audio also have a point when they say that um, audio gives you a better idea of how things can or should be pronounced. So I can see both sides, although I'm a very heavy braille reader because when I don't read stuff, it pretty much.
Right, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're very right. And I think you really expressed it well, that reading Braille helps us to know how things are spelled, and listening to audio helps us to understand how things are pronounced. You are very right. And I'm someone who's bilingual. I also speak French. I'm also a French speaker. So I understand what you mean, that you have to listen and read at the same time to truly understand things. Yeah.
Yeah, and having learned several languages myself to varying degrees, I also know that in learning any language, to be proficient at it, you have to be able not only to speak and understand spoken words, but you also have to be able to get anything done to read and write it just as well.
Hmm. Absolutely. So let's dig a little bit further into your YouTube. So tell us about your channels. How did you get started with YouTube, and really break down the elements of, if someone comes to your channel, what will they experience on your channel? Go right ahead.
Yeah, so quite a few years ago, I started a channel just for my craft business to show people what I've been doing. but I, for various reasons, never really kept active on that channel. I got a bit tired of it. But in the last year or so, I um, I started my being more active on my Harmony LN7 channel because look, like I like writing, but I don't really know where to put it. So how about let's just talk to the camera and talk to whoever's around and have them write back to me. And so I thought, okay, well, what am I most interested in at this point in time? So that's when I started doing the whole um, reading, saving money, low wage living, a whole bunch of things on the one channel. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute, this is getting a little fluffy. I asked people what they thought I should do, if I should keep everything on one channel or start a new channel. So some of the things, I didn't get all that many responses because people, they watch the videos, but they don't make a habit of going to the community tab of the channel and seeing what you post on um, your little text posts that you can do or any polls or whatever. Um, so of the few people that did reply, a good number said they would quite like to see a separate channel for reading related things. What I did, I mean, I'd been thinking of doing the books and reading stuff on a separate channel anyway. So I thought, okay, great. I guess people agreed. Then I started that, the Harmony Loves to Read channel. I think it was October, November, like that, 2023. A couple of months or so ago now.
Mm-hmm. Really good. Yeah. So here's what I would say to that. I would say that no, you need to have one channel on YouTube and you need to have playlists for each of these sections. So you can have a section for reading, you can have a section for saving money, you can have a section for working, whatever topic you want to cover should have its own playlist. And then
Yeah,
each time you upload a video regarding to that topic, it just simply is assigned to that playlist. The reason
yeah,
why I'm saying it is people love to be able to go to a channel and specifically search a playlist that's of interest to them. So you should be offering several topics on your channel to entertain people, and it's up to people to go to the playlist that they want to learn about and want to watch. So yeah, that's really good.
that's why I was debating for a while before I actually started the channel. Um, should I make it a separate channel all by itself, or should I just keep going with my playlist that I was doing? And yeah, so it was a really a toss up between the two, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So when you create a reading video on YouTube on your channel, so what do you read? How do you read it? How do you structure a reading video? And then how do you decide what to read for the viewer?
Well, mainly it um, a lot of the time it's things that I'm planning to read anyway. And I tend to some of the stuff that I've reviewed is things that's already been popular, like on my Harmony LN7 channel, I did a book review of The Ghost of Thomas Kemp, which is a book that everyone reads at some point. We read it at school, for example, in the English class, but I reread it as an adult. So I thought, oh, I'll put that up there because one that everyone knows what it is. um, or sometimes I'll put things that people don't know what it is because I find it interesting. Therefore, somebody somewhere in the world other than me must also find it interesting. Um, like, I think I did a book, a review of, I can't remember. I don't think I reviewed A History of the World in 100 Objects. That was long and tedious. But I did do one of another history book. Um, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, sometimes I do consider asking them if there's anything that people would like me to review. I'm sort of doing that before. Maybe I should do that a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So in other words, when you structure a book review, and I mean, I think this is very valuable, and this brings back, for an American guy, this brings back a lot of memories to being in a high school and your teacher asking you to do a book review and, the person really hating it, for many years, everybody hates doing book reviews, unless you actually liked the book. See, that's the thing. If you liked the book, then it's actually fun to really write it, to really write a review and really analyze the book. So when you
Yeah.
when you review a book from your perspective, and I think this is where I really got to tell you, Harmony, this is information and knowledge that the public needs to know this because this is you doing these reviews, you are providing more knowledge to the public than you're actually aware. This is actually very valuable to people. So when you review a book, what stands out to you? And when readers read a book, what should they key in on and pay attention to?
Um, well, I normally go for genres that I enjoy reading, and so things like your crime fiction, or if it's an author I've read before, or history, things like that. But also, um, sometimes I make a point of avoiding the most popular books because they, I think to myself, sometimes they get a bit too much. Um, the modern word for it would be hot, a bit too much coverage. I'm like, hang on, there's all these other thousands and billions of books out there that are also available that could possibly be read and reviewed and told about. Um, so when I review a book, I look for the things that I enjoy about the book. Um, but I also sometimes I've done the odd review about the book that I might not have enjoyed so much, or I might have had some kind of, I might have well have taken issue with something or whatever, because in a way, those books can be, those kinds of reviews can be as valuable because I'm thinking now, I've recently finished reading The Winter Ghost by Kate Moss, which I did a review of. I'm going to upload that soon. Um, I searched in the last couple of days on YouTube to see what other people say about it, and actually, a lot of people have given it not such good reviews, or they found it boring or long or something like that. So just because you might not like a book or you might not think very much of it. I might think it's the best book in the world. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you look at a book and you say what you like about it, but then you also give critical information about what you disliked about it or some points that you might have disagreed about. And
Yeah,
that really reminds me too to bring it up, and I always bring this up in the intro and outro, but I always like to say, the kind and compassionate thing to do would be to rate and review Aaron's opinion wherever you listen. And of course, don't forget to tell us what you like and dislike about the podcast because actually, hold on a second. That is someone who's never actually we want to welcome to our audience and they are muted right now, but we will get to them in a moment. Someone from South Africa, one of our South African friends has actually joined
cool.
us. So now you're
Hello.
talking to the public and South Africa. And we'll get to them in a moment. Yeah, I actually allow the audience to sit in the virtual audience like a TV show and watch,
Yeah.
and then at the end we open the microphone and let that person. By the way, that person has a great name to be in an audience. By the way, I love saying their name. They have a great name that I love to say. Anyway, um, um, but when you review Aaron's opinion, though, it is important to tell us what you like and what you don't like. Because actually, I completely agree with you, Harmony. Book reviews or reviews of material that actually show both sides of the story. Here's what's good and here's what's bad. Those are more valuable. Though that review that makes it a value that adds value. And I don't
Yeah.
mean to be negative about what I do, what we do on Aaron's Opinion, or what Harmony does on her channel. But what I do mean is you need to be constructively critical, meaning you need to say, here's something that I disagree with, and here's why. And that really adds value to the review and write-up, and it really does. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's extremely valuable. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what kind of book do you like to read, Aaron?
Well, of course, as you can probably guess, and this will bring up controversy right away, I'm sure, but of course, I was a huge Harry Potter fan my whole life.
Of course.
Um, Absolutely. And then of course, outside of that, I really enjoy reading books about history, books about things that have happened, science fiction. I also had a huge fascination with the book, and this sounds silly, but I had a huge fascination with the book The Giver, which was written many, many years ago, about the people who lived in the futuristic apocalyptic society. Similar, by the way, to the society that we are probably moving towards. And then there was a boy named Jonas who becomes the protagonist and overthrows the government and has a whole big meltdown and things like that. So that whole book plus that whole movie is just one of my favorites. It's a very short book, very short movie, but it's really well done you know so
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of my favorites. I love science fiction, love everything about it. I loved Ender's Game. I didn't read the entire set of those books. There were many books that were written, but I loved Ender's Game, loved the movie. The City of Ember, I read that whole series when I was in middle school, secondary school, as we would say over there in England. When I was in secondary, I read, City of Ember trilogy. Um, those books were amazing. So I would say I tend to lean towards history and then science fiction. Now, have you done a critical review of a science fiction book? Because I think the purpose of science fiction is to be critical. So what do you think about science fiction?
Ooh, I've not I've not read a great deal of science fiction.
Hmm.
Having said that, though, I have read George Orwell's
Hmm.
1984.
Absolutely.
I haven't reviewed that, but maybe I should like reread it because it's been a few years since I've read it.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I tend to read a lot of books like that, but some things I've started reading and then they're not what I thought they were, or they were
Yeah.
they were really long and I never got around to finishing them.
Hmm.
Um, I think the last couple of years or so, I've been reading a lot of Agatha Christie, Peter May. Like Agatha Christie is, of course, renowned for being a crime writer, and
Hmm.
Peter May is a crime writer, but he does delve into historical fiction as well. And actually, he's done recently a kind of climate fiction book I think sounds rather interesting.
Hmm. Absolutely. All of those names are very recognizable in the United States. So definitely. Hmm.
Yeah. As far as um, those two authors go, I'd often heard of Agatha Christie, but for whatever reason, I'd never really been that much into crime fiction. But when I do read those kind of books, uh, it's not the goriness that I enjoy, but more the investigation and the
Hmm.
mystery element.
Right. Sure. Sure. Understanding the psychology behind the people and why they
Yeah,
chose to behave in that manner. Absolutely. You are very right and very wise. That's very, very interesting. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that is a very interesting concept. Sure, sure. I oftentimes enjoy watching documentaries. And in documentaries you can learn a lot about why people behave the way they do, or things like that. Hmm.
yeah, documentaries are great.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever expand and do other reviews? In other words, what I mean by reviews is, have you ever, for example, have you ever reviewed a podcast, for example, or have you ever reviewed a TV show? I don't know. It would just be, I think that would be actually really cool and really interesting if you sat
Hmm.
down and you reviewed a podcast and you talked about, the origin of the podcast, talk about it almost like it is a book, which basically a podcast is an audio book, basically. So have you ever thought of doing something like that?
I haven't, but it's an interesting idea. There is a podcast that I, um, no matter what other podcasts I've subscribed to and unsubscribed from over the years, I've always kept coming back to this one particular podcast, The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. Anyone that
What's it called again? Here, say it a little louder and a little closer. Which one
um,
is it?
it's The Unexplained with Howard Hughes.
Hmm.
Uh,
So it's called The Unexplained.
yeah, with Howard Hughes.
Right.
Uh, so um, anything really from science, like space science, to uh, the whole area of paranormal things.
Mm-hmm.
To, um, actually, his podcast is how I found out about Peter May's book Lockdown.
Hmm.
He's had people like David Icke on there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, pretty much anything he covers in the realm of things that can't necessarily be
Mm-hmm.
explained.
Right. So basically anything that hasn't been explained yet, he'll explain it.
Or interview someone about it or anything. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. That sounds like that would be right up my alley. I should probably
Yeah.
look into that. It sounds like something that I would enjoy, something where they talk
Yeah.
about strange mysteries and strange things. And yeah, that's really good.
Yes.
That-
Sometimes they
mhm.
have sometimes they'll have like psychic mediums on there, sometimes they have people from doing like your space projects, like, where they have your telescopes and they look out, see what's happening with the planets, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I interviewed in the past, a couple years back, I actually interviewed someone who does a lot of astronomy work. So I've talked about astronomy on Aaron's Opinion. Yeah, it's
Nice.
extremely interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think? I mean, you are really, I mean, I got to tell you, I'm always impressed by all of my guests, and I am definitely impressed with you, Harmony. You are fully plugged into society and you are fully committed to learning. And that is really good. You know, that's something that I really like about people when they're totally
Yeah.
committed. That,
On
yeah.
on my channel, my Harmony LN7 channel, I did actually do a little video called Strange and Unexplained at some point last year, where I talk about a few experiences of this kind.
Excellent. So, what are some experiences that you have had that are unexplainable that you still are able to explain?
Well, the one that most often springs to mind is speaking of technology. Um, so a few years ago, back in I think, 2019 was now stayed at I stayed at a friend's house and I'd been there for a number of weeks and I was planning on leaving the next day, going to somewhere else. So I'd gone up I'd gone up to bed and been laying there listening to podcasts or whatever I was doing on my phone and turned off my phone so I could go to sleep. And went to sleep and I woke up later on in the morning and I looked on the windowsill where I had left my phone and no phone. I was like, oh, what? Well, maybe I knocked it on the floor or on the bed somewhere. So looked all around, couldn't see it. Had my friend look around the room and he couldn't see it. Um, so I stayed an extra day, an extra night to see if we could find it, and we couldn't. So off I went. Traveling without the phone to me didn't bother me. Um, I'm like, okay, just tell people in advance where I'm going to be. Um, you know, get to a payphone or reception desk phone or whatever. Let people know what's going on when I can because they already know where I'm going anyway. So anyway, he said, well, you know, I find it when I find it. So never found it, and I got a new phone a couple of months later. Uh, now this particular friend had two or three people empty out that whole room, and wouldn't you know, never found the phone. It just disappeared completely off the face of the well, I don't know, the face of the planet, I guess. And I asked when I put that video out last year, I asked my friend to watch it and talk to me about it, and he said, "Yeah, actually, when I moved out of that house, it still never got found, and there must be something going on in that particular house because it had other uh, electronics and things were missing and never found
Oh my.
them.
That's
Like
that's a weird one.
even
That's
even
definitely
talking
unexplainable. Hmm.
even talking book players, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that definitely sounds like that could be supernatural. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, because bear in mind the windows were like they were all closed and shut, rather firmly shut, so nobody could have got in
Right.
if they wanted to. And we were sleeping on separate floors of the house, and he was
Hmm.
all the way downstairs, and I was upstairs, and I would have heard him if it was him. Not that it was, but if he'd come up and decided to move it for a laugh or something, like
Hmm.
not that kind of person, but you know, I don't know
Right. Right.
anything of that
Because then,
sort.
I mean, on one hand, I would say in the back of my mind, because I have a pretty twisted sense of humor, just like you, I would say, well, have you gone into that friend's bedroom and gone all the way into their back closet, into their back wardrobe, and make sure there's not just like a pile of all these like electronic devices that they've been like stealing over like 20 years, you know? But hey, that stranger things have happened, or maybe it is supernatural, or who knows,
Yeah, maybe.
that is pretty funny and pretty strange too. So yeah,
Yeah,
these weird things happen, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Definitely. That is definitely a very strange tale and a very strange story. Yeah. Um, that is super good. We have about another 20 minutes or so today.
okay.
So the guest who is also sitting very nicely in the audience, his name is Francois Marais, and
Hello, Francois.
this is always very, very humorous. Francois is from South Africa. He
Yeah, I
descends
know.
from he descends from French people, and he does not speak French, so don't worry about that. He speaks
Oh,
perfect English. He can't speak any French. Anyway, um, I'm sure that Francois would like to join the conversation. So if you don't mind, can I turn on his microphone and bring him on?
yeah, Francois is a friend of mine. Go for it.
Yeah, of course. You probably recognize the name now that I said it from Discord where we all met in the first place. So let's bring him on here. Okay. All right. Francois, please join us. I opened your microphone. You may certainly join the conversation. What questions do you have for me, Francois, or what questions do you have for Harmony?
Hello. Well,
Hello.
I don't have any questions so far. Wasn't there for the entire thing, but yeah, I definitely remember that time when your phone disappeared, and I was wondering if it was ever found, but wow, wasn't
Oh,
found. Wasn't
What,
found.
Francois, is her phone, is this disappeared phone, is it by any chance in your house, in your bedroom where you've been salvaging electronic devices for 30 years?
Ah, no, definitely
Okay.
not.
Okay, well, we have this on record now. You're being recorded. Okay. All right, we'll take your word for it. So I love talking about mystery, and there have been a
yeah.
lot of mysterious things that have happened to me during my life. Sometimes some of these things are, unexplainable, and I think the purpose is to show ourselves, to show that sometimes really Harmony and Francois and everyone else, the reason why unexplainable things happen is to show us that as we walk through the journey of life together, there are things that are okay not explaining. And that's part of
Yeah.
living, is that there are things that should be a mystery. Anyway, Francois, what question do you really want to ask Harmony about all the content we've already covered today?
Hmm, no, I don't think I have any questions so far.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the thing I was gonna say actually that I noticed about that event is that um at the time I was traveling around, as you probably remember, Francois. I was traveling around various parts of England and about to go for a couple of weeks to America. And which is why I ended up getting a new phone. Um, but, but people were all like, "Oh, I don't like the idea of you traveling without a phone and all this, that, the other." And I seem to be the only one that wasn't bothered about it. But the thing that really struck me was that I before that happened, I was thinking to myself, we're so reliant on technology. What would happen if we just turned off the cell phone, turned off your stuff that you really don't necessarily need to be tied to all the time, and just went back to the old write a letter or write a postcard or phone someone on the landline in advance or something like that, and just like we've not always had this constant stream of communication, most of which is not that useful. How often do you get people that all they want to do is just make small talk and they do contact you? And I've been thinking a lot about that beforehand, and then so after I lost my phone, I was thinking to myself, "Oh, is this the universe testing me? Like, okay, you put this question out there. Thank you very much. Off you go."
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. It does seem to prove that it could be some sort of test or some sort of universal thing. And I like I said before, I think the point of it is that there are certain things in life that happen that we just are supposed to not understand, that they're just parts of the
Yeah,
folds and fabrics of our universe, that we really are not supposed to fully know. And
exactly.
I think that's very, very interesting. Yeah, yeah. Well, very good. Excellent. And then so Harmony, you also cover some other topics, right? You also cover budgeting, you also cover some business stuff. So what are some other sections of your channel that you cover?
Yeah, so some of the things I talk about on the Harmony LM7 channel, which by the way is up to 70 subscribers now as of today. Um, it um, so I talk about saving money a little bit on there, which I think is very important because even even if you're the richest person in the world, well, you still have a budget of some description, even if even if that's not a very tight one, you still have to decide what is going to bring the most value to your life, what's going to bring the most meaning. Um, that's always important. Um, and if you don't have a lot, then it's even more important to value what you do have, I think. I talk about that. And I also talk about low waste living because I care a lot about the environment and the effect that what humans do has on the animals and the plants and all the other, like any other life forms um, that are present on this planet. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
uh,
That's really good. That's
yeah.
really, really good. Yeah. Yeah. And so you've also done a lot of traveling around the world. So where have you traveled to around the world, by the way?
Um, yeah. So when I had family that lived there, I went to Cyprus um, a couple of times, and the last time I came back from there, actually, I ended up flying back in a a storm, and the plane was getting blown around all over the place, which was scary because uh, we were landing at night time, so everywhere was dark. And thanks to the commentary from the person behind me, who decided to keep a running commentary going, according to him, we stopped just before we got to the end of the runway. um, but also, I've been to Finland a couple of times. Beautiful country. Nice people too. And I've been to America only for a couple of weeks, but I intend to go. I intend to go for longer next time because I only went for a few days in a couple of different states. A few days in Chicago, Illinois. I know Chicago is not the only city in Illinois, of course, but that's the one that a lot of people focus on. A few days there. Spent a day or two in Warsaw, Indiana, with a friend, and went down to Nashville, Tennessee for a week before I came back.
Hmm. Very interesting. Extremely interesting. So what did you do in Nashville, Tennessee, in the Music City? What did you do there?
I went on a studio tour of RCA Studio B, which is where they did a lot of Roy Orbison and Elvis Presley recorded a lot of their stuff there. Dolly Parton recorded, I think, most of her stuff there in the early days. I have reason to believe she still does record some of her stuff there. And so that was interesting. But I noticed on that tour, out of all the artists that have ever recorded there, they focused mainly on one or two. So it might just as well have been here's what Roy Orbison and Elvis Presley recorded at this studio tour. Although it was still very interesting. I also went to a yarn store, House of Yarn. That was fun because I got involved in a knitting group that goes on there. Nice to meet everyone. And I visited a couple of vegan restaurants as well.
Very interesting. So good. So good. Yeah. Yeah. I've also been to Tennessee once. I also have one of my many fascinations in life is parrots and birds. So there's a particular parrot zoo that you can go to, parrot attraction in Tennessee, and I've been to that place too. So Tennessee has a lot of hidden gems and a lot of interesting points of tourism for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good. And then what did you do in Chicago?
Uh, Not a great deal, but I did meet up with a friend there, and we had ordered some lunch and
Hmm.
just hung out for a bit. I mean, there's not much you can do when you're only there for like 3 or 4 days.
Right. Sure. Sure. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when I go back to America, I'll go to next time, and yeah, it'll be good. There's not there's not really enough time in a couple of weeks to
Hmm.
do and see all the things. Having said that, though, I did get to go to um, the city that I so often read and heard about. Um, I got to meet some friends that I never thought I'd get to meet in person after a zillion years of knowing them online. So that was great.
Right, right. Well, that is really interesting. Yeah. Mhm. And then what you also mentioned that you've been to Finland several times. What brought you to Finland?
Um, partly, partly I have a friend that is Finnish and lives there, and wanted to see them. But partly I wanted to see what kind of country is Finland, because I heard I heard of it being very foresty and very like I'd heard of all the like winter snows and everything, and I thought I would quite like to go and explore this place.
Right.
And
Hmm.
I also hear they have a fantastic education system. Um, really good. In fact, it's so full that I tried to get into the Finnish 101 course down in Helsinki, and it was full like in February or March. It was all the September course was already full.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, that's how popular it is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I thought,
And
oh
their language is very difficult in comparison to other ancient languages of Europe. The Finnish language is extremely difficult and very unusual. So yeah. Hmm.
for some people, yeah, but I find some languages really easy to pick up, which is why I'm pretty sure. Um, I wonder if I had like Scandinavian ancestry, because
Hmm.
things like Norwegian, Finnish, those kind of things. I'm like, okay, I get that.
That's excellent.
Even if
Although Norwegian and Finnish are not in the same language group, though. Those are two different language
no,
families. Yeah.
true.
Finnish, for those who don't know, Finnish is more related to the Hungarian language. And the Norwegian language actually came from a language called Faroese, which is what is spoken with the Faroe Islands. Yes, they still speak
Yeah,
some very ancient languages there. Hmm.
and it's related also to the Icelandics, I think.
Right, right. Because first came the Icelandics, and then some of them would go to the Faroe Islands, develop Faroese, and then some of them would leave Faroe Islands and go to a place that they called Norway, and then they would develop their Norwegian. So yes, it's all of those languages are related. And Gutnish, of course, which is the language that came before Swedish, Gutnish, and then Swedish, and languages like that. But
Yeah.
Finnish is more mostly closely related to the Hungarian language, which is also very difficult. Yes. Hmm. Yeah.
They up in the north of Scotland in the Hebridean Islands, uh, they also speak Gaelic.
Yeah.
Um, okay, Gaelic is the English pronounce it,
Hmm.
which I find fascinating because I really like to hear that language
Me
spoken, but
too.
a lot of people just find it an absolute nightmare.
Right. No, I love hearing these ancient languages, and I love speaking French, my French language that I can speak now. So that's very good. I also find that it's very easy for me to pick up languages, but everybody's different and everybody picks up certain things and has certain interests in life. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
uh,
wonderful.
yeah. We were talking to circle back to literacy. In I was thinking actually remembering this is been a few years back now, but there was a time pre pre COVID thing that it was said that the UK sadly came, I think it was something like 19th or 20th in the world for literacy rates. And that was way below all the countries we've just mentioned. Finland, Sweden, even Japan. I think America was even higher than the UK.
Hmm. Hmm. That is that is a very interesting fact. Yeah. Yeah. It's also not surprising, but I also have to tell you, Harmony, that we are basically out of time today in this beautiful conversation, beautiful hour.
Okay.
But of course, we have a couple more things to go over. For one thing,
Mm.
if you can ask me only one more question to really make me sweat to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster, what do you want to know about me?
Hmm. Um, so what inspired you to want to learn French? Do you have family that speaks the language?
Well,
And why did
I was
oh
not
sure.
inspired. Well, I was not inspired to learn French. I was required to learn French. Both of my parents studied
Oh.
French. And what happened was at first, I never wanted to speak French. And in high school, I would have been too embarrassed and too shy to go up to a French person and start talking. But everything changed in 2015, where I went to a small French city called Montpellier. And Montpellier is in the province, I believe, of Languedoc-Roussillon. And it was a really, really good experience for me. And then from that point forward, I discovered that I'm a French speaker and that I can go up to French people and ask anything I want and have a meaningful conversation. So over those years, I've been to France many times, and now I'm very comfortable in French now as a French speaker. So yes, that is true. Yeah.
So,
So
so
yeah.
Francois, you speak English and Afrikaans, right? Do you speak any other languages?
Maybe they mute. Maybe they muted.
Mm.
They might have muted. Yeah. So anyway, that's fine, Francois. No worries. Yeah. So anyway, though, Francois, definitely thank you for joining us. As I always like to say, if you want to be in the audience of Aaron's Opinion, we would love to have you. So definitely click the Zoom link and definitely sit in come to the audience. We love having a great audience. This has been a really special episode as always, and just a wonderful conversation, Harmony. I just cannot thank you enough for joining us. So we'll end here by saying if someone wants to get in touch with Harmony, how would they do it?
Yeah, you can feel free to email me at harmonyln7@gmail.com, email address. And um, I have I have Skype and Twitter, those kind of
Wow,
things.
you still use that's unusual that you still use Skype. Wow.
Yeah. I also run a Braille Pen Pal Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do a search for Braille Pen Pals for those that like to write letters and not send Braille letters to people around the world, we have 40 members now, I think.
Right. Right. Well, we will definitely get all of your links and help you to build a beautiful description for the episode and all of that. So that is really wonderful. Harmony, you are forever welcome here on Aaron's Opinion. And keep reading. Keep reading and keep uploading YouTube videos because you are doing a really, really good job. You're doing very well with all of your content and all the knowledge that you're providing the world. But thank you, Harmony.
Thanks.
You're always welcome. All right, everybody. You take care out there in the podcast world and take care. And as we like to say, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow. For those of you who are still surviving on YouTube, thank you so much. Like the video, comment below, tickle the bell notification to know when we go live next on YouTube. And click the link in the description to get in touch with Harmony, and maybe you'll learn about a new book or a new unexplained thing that she has explained in the world. So thank you, everybody. We'll end it there. This has been a wonderful conversation. And Harmony, I will be in touch with you later on today. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time.